you're still joining, that'd be great. We'll be glad to have you. Well, once again, good morning. My name is Adam Rock. I am the Senior Director here at Hiring Our Heroes, and welcome to this Thursday morning's industry brief, part of Hiring Our Heroes virtual career community. So far, we've had tremendous success. We've had really good success on Thursdays with these featured industry briefs. And this morning, we're going to start off with a very special featured industry brief from FASTPORT. FASTPORT Incorporated is going to take the lead, and it's got some key panelists. I'm actually really honored. I think I'd like to publicly say I think they're more than just a featured partner of ours. They're a true partner of Hiring Our Heroes, and even more so of me personally. And I know Bill McClendon, the CEO, is out there listening, and Brad here, and David. But actually, when I retired from the military just over 2 years ago, FASTPORT was the very first company to hire me, and I worked for them for nearly 18 months. And I'm just really honored and proud to serve alongside them, continuing to do this important mission today. And I'm just glad that Brad and Dave are representing FASTPORT live as well. We've got a tremendous panel this morning, so you really don't need to hear from me, you need to hear from them. But this is unique when we're talking about apprenticeships. We have some of the most expert people in the community on this panel today, and they've got some great information as well. Let's talk about apprenticeships in general, though, especially for you transitioning service members and veterans at large. You know, not everybody in the military transitioning out wants to pursue their education through the traditional means of whether it be an associate's degree or a bachelor's or master's degree. And there are other ways to pursue education. One of those ways is this apprenticeship opportunity. And as Dave is probably going to talk to you about the many thousands of apprenticeships that are out there, this is a tremendous way to do this. A few years ago, the military, DOD, authorized service members within their last 180 days or the last 6 months to attend an apprenticeship program. It is called the SkillBridge program. And that opened the door in a lot of ways. That is a tremendous policy that hadn't been done before, but the military saw the need for our transitioning service members to obtain additional skills. If you decided you didn't want to do use your GI Bill or go the traditional route, as I talked about, going to college, there are other means to do that. And apprenticeships afford you that opportunity. So now the military has the authority for you to be able to do that while in service. You can use your GI Bill, which Dave is going to talk about, or you can continue to do that as a veteran out there. So I know we have in this audience today a lot of transitioning service members, but we might have some veterans as well. So what the information they're going to present to you applies to both. Remember, it's about finding a meaningful career, and whatever path or avenue suits you best, it is what you should pursue. So apprenticeships is a great way to do that. Let me turn it over to the president of FASTPORT, my dear friend Brad Bentley, who's going to go ahead and make some introductory remarks and then talk about the panel. Brad?
Well, first of all, Adam, thanks for the kind words earlier. We are in a little bit of different times here. Congratulations on your recent position with Hiring Our Heroes. I think your first event with HOH about 2 months ago down in Tampa as part of the Veteran Employment Advisory Council was probably one of the last events that myself and probably everybody else on this call was able to attend live. So we've seen this conversion over to a digital world, doing virtual career fairs and providing content like this on platforms like Zoom. So I want to thank you personally and also Hiring Our Heroes for this opportunity to present to your online career community. I think we've gathered a great panel here today. Certainly people, to your point earlier, with a lot of experience in registered apprenticeships. We've got two panelists that have both worked at high levels at the Department of Labor, both on the ETA side and the OA side. You're going to be hearing more in depth from them soon, as well as my counterpart, Dave Harrison, who you'll hear from in a minute, that has been involved in creating national standards of apprenticeship, and our goal today really was to try to assemble a group that could talk about trends, talk about the new norm, if you will. There's a lot of public-private partnerships. There's things happening interagency with DOD and DOL. Carolyn's going to cover something new there related to DOL vets. And we're going to touch on as many industries as we can. We have, I guess, the privilege as FASTPORT to be privy to things that are going on in a lot of the other industries besides the ones that we represent. So regardless of what the opportunities are that our audience is looking for today, hopefully we can steer you in the right direction. So with that, I'll keep my remarks brief. My role today is really to be more of a facilitator and to kick it over to the experts that truly have the experience and do a lot of work in the apprenticeship space. So with that, let me kick it over to Dave Harrison, the Executive Director of National Apprenticeship for FASTPORT. He can talk about how we got into to this game and tell you a little bit about his background.
So
Dave?
Brad, before Dave takes over, you just allow me to chime in. There's two pieces of administrative work I wanted to talk about that I failed to before. The first thing is the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Since this is live, you're all muted right now and we can't see your screens. If you have a question for anybody on the panel, please type that into the Q&A and we'll make sure that we get that answered at the completion of all the slides. And additionally, we're going to attempt to run a poll, our own internal survey here for the participants that are out there. We've got two questions we're going to ask you, and David's going to plop those up on the screen. If you could take about a minute to each one as they pop up, maybe answer that survey while Dave begins his remarks, and then we'll bring up the second survey, and then we'll tally them, and then that will help drive some of the conversation with the experts we have today. So thank you very much. Go ahead, Brad.
You're going to introduce everybody?
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. My name is Dave Harrison, Executive Director of National Apprenticeships and Military Programs with FASTPORT. I'm honored to be here and pleased to be speaking to all of you today, and thank you for your service. The panel we're on is pretty remarkable. Eric Sells-Now, quite frankly, I probably wouldn't be on this panel or involved in apprenticeship in this way if Eric Sells-Now hadn't had the vision to create the intermediary system that has put us in place to facilitate and expand apprenticeship in large-scale fashions on behalf of the Office of Apprenticeship. Carolyn Runick, she now is with DOL Vets, but previously you were handling the IT end, specifically among other things up in the OA office. And I constantly cross paths with people who have interacted with Carolyn, and her actions speak for herself in that space. She's left every place she's been has been better off since she was there that I'm aware of. So I'm very pleased to be on this panel with these folks. This is an all-star panel if you count those two and you discount me. But other than that, as far as I'm concerned, I am a former U.S. Army airborne individual, like to jump out of planes for no apparent reason other than sound like a good idea at the time. I served for 14 years before I was medically retired. Since then, I've been a high school teacher, both English and history, a high school football coach. I was a college football coach. I own my own business, and I started a small truck line, small fleet owner, and that led me eventually to work for a Fortune 400 company called JB Hunt Transport, where eventually I designed, developed, and directed the Hunt's Heroes program and hired 10,000 veterans, actually close to 11,000 veterans in 5 years. And that is what brought me to apprenticeship. Apprenticeship specifically is a boon to a veteran in transition. And the design of a registered apprenticeship will provide specific benefits to a transitioning military and possibly their family members. And that's specifically when we started building national apprenticeship programs for our transition program at JB Hunt. Apprenticeship is where I went, and the first place that I ended up with was at the Department of Labor. which eventually led me to be right here. Next slide, please. A little bit about FASTPORT. We are an intermediary contracted by the Department of Labor. I referred to that earlier. Many of our partners, you'll recognize these people in the space that you're working with, and you run across them. We are particularly proud of receiving the Higher Vets Gold Medallion Award 2 years in a row for our role and participation in transitioning military hiring for their families, and it's something we're particularly proud of on this end of the house. Next slide, please. I want to discuss this right off the bat. There's several common misconceptions for apprenticeship. And I run across this. I speak to transitioning military. I was in Okinawa in February, and every single day I heard at least 15 times misconceptions about apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is not a fellowship. It's not an internship. It is a paid process. It is an earn while you learn model. And specifically, it is designed for people who are underemployed or who need specific occupational training or in transition from a calling like military service and need specific occupational training that will allow them to compete across the civilian sector in particular occupational disciplines. And it is designed in that effect. Moreover, because the DOL sanctifies, if you will, the apprenticeship, you are guaranteed that you're getting a high level of training that is cross-sectioned and accepted all across the board within any industry segment you get to. And quite often those skills are transferable from one to the other, because as multi-learning apparatuses are becoming more and more prevalent, and the new workforce has so many aspects to it in the modern era. We find career lattices are happening constantly within apprenticeship. What that means to you, to put it very simply, it means that the career path starts in what's available, but if you get in with the companies providing apprenticeship programs, there'll be multiple options for you as you progress in your career. And many of those companies that are veteran ready and friendly have the ability to articulate those career paths through the apprenticeship window. And the apprenticeship now more than ever is a career pathing model. So it has very strong results there. I would point out that the apprenticeships aren't only for small companies or building construction trades. Our apprentices are poorly paid. We're talking our average apprentice right now is making $70,000. In our particular program, we got over 13,000 apprentices, and our actual average pay is about $73,000 at the moment. And registered apprenticeships are much more prevalent than most people would think. As you can see on the screen, there's 23,400 registered apprenticeship programs across the nation right now. And there's been a massive expansion in the last 3 years in apprenticeships, as you can see on the slide. It is a viable option that is providing a massive impact across the board, both in retention and recruiting, and cross-sectionalizing the modern workforce into areas that are specifically needed from a national security standpoint. Next slide, please. Benefits to an apprentice. I'm not going to read all this to you, but essentially you will get a national credential upon completion of an apprenticeship that is issued by the Department of Labor. And that credential carries weight across the board. And it is a bona fides that you have received the industry standard training that is above any organizations that do not have a registered apprenticeship program. And it gives specific earn while you learn opportunities, as I mentioned before, through career lattices and career ladders that you may not be able to get to as easily other than through a registered apprenticeship program. and the connectivity with the people you meet through there. Of course, everybody knows that much about a career is people you know and people you meet and people you interact with. And apprenticeship is a great feeding ground for that as well. Next slide, please. This is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where it's important for most transitioning military. By participating in a registered apprenticeship program, the OJT portion of that registered apprenticeship program must be recognized by the VA as a viable option, so you can draw your monthly housing allowance benefit off your GI Bill. Now, how much that is ranges based off the location where you are employed and conducting your training by zip code. And it can be a wide range. In Miami, it's around $2,000 a month. The average person entering in an apprenticeship program with a post-9/11 GI Bill is eligible to draw close to $15,000 paid directly to them in their first year of apprenticeship. As you can see, it starts at 100% full value, and then it was reduced by 10% per year through the apprenticeship on post-9/11 GI Bill. That money is over and above what you're making from the employer. So by participating in a registered apprenticeship, you can draw, 12, 15, the average is about $1,400 a month across the country right now on across the board on MHA. Additionally, there are some benefits that include the cost of books and other and tuition assistance things and a few other apparatuses in particular cases. I cannot tell you if that will apply to you. You have to go apply for that benefit before, and no employer can tell you until you apply for the benefit. But by participating in a registered apprenticeship, you have the option of drawing this. You can draw it for the entire length of the apprenticeship, whether it be a 1-year apprenticeship or a 5-year apprenticeship, or you can draw it for a series of months, 5, 6 months, put some money away, pay some bills, get ahead of the ball game, sign it over to your family, or save it for yourself for further education. My organization has written and sponsored 8 national standards that are approved right now across the nation. And out of the 44 organizations that we're partnered with, that represents hundreds and hundreds of employers of different types of occupations, anywhere from transportation to cybersecurity to it's white collar, blue collar, everything in between, everything across the supply chain, logistics as well. I would encourage you that if you're interested in having employers contact you, have apprenticeship programs, go to the nationalapprenticeship.org, click on that, fill that out. That puts your name out in front of a couple hundred potential employers. There's also other websites that will direct you to. With that information, you will be in front of the best apprenticeship providers available in the country. My contact information is on the slide. Do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have a direct question or there's anything I can do to help you in your transition or your family member. With that, Brad, I'm gonna hand it off to you. Did I do okay,
Eric? Thanks for that, Dave. I think before we go to Carolyn, we've got the results of our poll. So this will help shape some of our conversation. I see that we've got cybersecurity, IT, transportation, logistics seem to be 3 of the top industries people are looking for, at least the ones that are on the call today. So FASTPORT certainly being the industry intermediary for transportation and logistics. If you have any of those questions to get ready for Dave, please do so. He did mention our work in cybersecurity. I also know when Eric speaks that they have worked with some leading employers like Lockheed Martin on a cybersecurity program, for example. So appreciate everybody that logged in with those poll questions so that we can discuss all of those industries. I'm very excited about our next presenter. And I'm seeing we've got the results in also for the amount of time for transition. So it looks like the leader in the clubhouse are people that are already out in the workforce, maybe looking for upskilling opportunities or a second opportunity. So that can help shape some of our conversations moving forward as well. Carolyn Rennick is going to be our next presenter. Very excited for her to share something new that the Department of Labor Vets is doing. She came over with the Bureau of Labor Statistics and was also at the Office of Apprenticeship at the DOL, has extensive background in it. So I'm going to turn over to Carolyn and let her talk about something that's now being rolled out on a handful of installations for the DOL Vets program. Carolyn?
Great. Thank you so much, Brad. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on this fantastic webinar. As Brad said, I'm with the Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training Service. So prior to coming to the Vets office, I was in the Office of Apprenticeship. It's been a whirlwind over there. It's been so exciting. Apprenticeship is a very one of the top priorities of the Department of Labor right now. A lot of money invested in expanding apprenticeship, not only to new and emerging industry sectors, but also to different populations as veterans, women, people with disabilities, among others. So I'm here to tell you all today about this, a new Vets Apprenticeship pilot. The Department of Labor is administering this pilot as part of our Transition Assistance Program, and as we work to enable all veterans to reach their full potential in the workplace. So the main goals for this pilot is to identify, track, and increase the number of transitioning service members and their spouses hired from the military into apprenticeship programs. So what we're trying to do is make sure that these transitioning service members get job offers from apprenticeship programs prior to them transitioning out. We want to make sure that they have a job in hand. Many transitioning service members aren't sure what they want to do when they get out. They're not sure how their skills in the military transfer over to the civilian world. So apprenticeship program is a great tool to help them make that transition. You can go into an apprenticeship program without having all the skills you need to be fully competent in a specific area and go through that apprenticeship program and get those skills. So many of you, as I saw in that poll, are looking at cybersecurity and IT. When I was in the Office of Apprenticeship, I was the lead for cybersecurity apprenticeship programs, and I've seen so much interest and demand from employers. There is such a shortage of skilled employees right now and skilled people out there to fill their openings. It's just a critical need. So excited to see that there's so many people that are looking at that career field. And then we also have a number of different apprenticeship programs that have already been developed in cyber and IT that you can go into. So the second goal for the pilot is to increase the number of apprenticeship programs that actually hire the transitioning service member prior to their separation. So the contractor, Serco, is who's helping support this pilot, is really looking and engaging with employers who want to develop these apprenticeship programs to attract these transitioning service members. Next slide, please. So the pilot officially kicked off January of this year. We are fully operational as of April 1st. Fully operational means that we have hired all of the support staff to support this project. So we have 16 apprenticeship placement counselors that have been placed at 8 different installations across the country. So even though they're at 8 different installations, you know, we're really focusing on those transitioning service members at that area. The apprenticeship pilot really is going to be nationwide. So we could have a transitioning service member who wants to transition out of, for example, Fort Bragg, and they may want to either go back home to Kansas, they may want to go to Virginia where the top IT and cyber positions are, or they may want to go anywhere in the country where the best job is. So really, it's not just going to focus on those individual states and those locations. It can be a nationwide touch. So as you can see here, the 8 different installations that we have, they are Fort Bragg and Fort Bliss for Army, Norfolk and San Diego for Navy. We've got Nellis and Travis for Air Force, and Cherry Point and Miramar for the Marines. So these installations were chosen in conjunction with the Department of Defense. So the apprenticeship placement counselors that are placed at these different installations, you can see that we placed 3 apprenticeship placement counselors at each of the Army and Navy installations and 1 at the Air Force and Marine Corps installations. And it's all based on the size of those transitioning out. So we've got 3 at the larger ones, 1 at the smaller ones. And the APCs, these apprenticeship placement counselors, are really the key role in implementing this pilot. So what they're going to do is they're going to the TAP classes and they're going to introduce apprenticeship to the transitioning service members during these TAP workshops. They're going to talk to them about the value of apprenticeship, what apprenticeship is, that it's not only in the construction and skilled trades area. They're going to give examples of different employers that have apprenticeship programs to talk about how they are structured. And then from there, they are going to, for those transitioning service members that want to say, yes, I want your services, I want your help in being placed in an apprenticeship program, they are going to come to that apprenticeship placement counselor and say, here's the 3 locations in the country where I want to go. Here's the 3 different industry occupations that I'm interested in. And then that apprenticeship placement counselor is going to work to help find them placement. So they are going to access apprenticeship.gov, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later, where there's an apprenticeship finder tool that shows all open apprenticeship opportunities. And they're also going to be working with this database that we are currently developing that has a list of employers who have specifically said they want to connect with our pilot and connect to transitioning service members as a pipeline of apprentices to put into their program. So we're working closely with program stakeholders to identify these opportunities all throughout the United States, working with FASTPORT, working with IBM, working with a number of different entities across, as well as JFF, across to find these programs that really want to target these transitioning service members and their spouses. So lastly, lessons learned from the pilot will be used to develop a broader digital strategy. So right now, I mentioned we've got these 16 apprenticeship placement counselors. We can't really have bodies at all the different installations around the world. So what we want to do is create this digital platform so that any transitioning service member will be able to easily find and take them through this platform of engaging and getting placed at an apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So as Dave mentioned, the benefits for the career seekers. So earn as you learn. You are actually paid from day one as an apprentice. You actually earning and learning the skills as you go through. So for an apprenticeship program, as I mentioned, you're earning, you're getting a paycheck, you're getting on-the-job experience, you're getting classroom instruction. We call that related technical instruction. You are being placed with a mentor. So that mentor is helping guide you through your apprenticeship program. And at the end of the registered apprenticeship program, you're actually earning a DOL certified credential. So that's a portable and nationally recognized credential. You're avoiding student debt. Many apprenticeship programs, that employer is paying for the related technical instruction. So you actually do not have any student debt that you're going through. These apprenticeship programs can actually be connected to a community college. So you could actually be earning college credit, as well as some of our even connected to an associate's degree. You're going to gain workplace relevant skills in the field of your choice. You identify which occupations you want to go to. So apprenticeship programs are occupation specific, and that's how they have morphed. So you go into an apprenticeship program, you know what you're going to be learning through the on-the-job and what you're going to be learning through the related and technical instruction and what you're going to be mastering as you go through. You're going to ease the transition from school to the career. You're going to receive an industry recognized national portfolio credential or credential credits, college credits, as I mentioned, and you're going to jumpstart your career. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see apprenticeship finder tool on apprenticeship.gov. That's where you can go and you can find more information. Apprenticeship.gov can walk you through as a career seeker. There's a specific page for military as well as veterans. There's a page for employers that actually has a specific page if you want to hire veterans. Under the resources tab, I encourage you to go in there and explore registered apprenticeship, the new industry recognized apprenticeship. That's where the partner finder tool is, the apprenticeship finder tool. So that's a great one-stop shop for everything you need to know about apprenticeship. And then a statistic that we like to show is that 94% of apprentices who complete an apprenticeship retain employment. So after they go through the apprenticeship program, 94% continue to be employed with that employer with an average salary of $70,000. Next slide, please. So as Dave mentioned, I'm not going to really go into this. I know that Dave really covered this really well. One of the key benefits that employers are using to attract veterans to their program is they're becoming a registered apprenticeship program, and they're getting their program approved by the VA, their state approving agency, so that the veterans in their program can earn, to tap into their post 9/11 GI Bill benefits to earn their monthly housing stipend tax-free, again, based on where that training is occurring, in addition to the apprenticeship wages. So that's been a huge, huge attraction for veterans going to registered apprenticeship programs. You can also tap into books and supplies, and then you can pursue a skill really unrelated to previous military training and experience. Next slide, please. So again, on this slide, we've got all the Department of Labor's Veteran Employment Resources, apprenticeship.gov, veterans.gov, My Next Move, Career One Stop, also your American Job Centers. Those are great resources as well. So that is it for me. If anybody has any interest or wants some more information about the Vets Apprenticeship Pilot, you can email vetsapprenticeship@dol.gov. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for that, Carolyn. And Adam, just kind of a point of clarification here. I know she provided a lot of resources on there. The online career community for Hiring Our Heroes, after the fact that all these sessions will be made available, I believe that's correct, where people will be able to go back and link to all of these websites and not have to maybe write down everything as we go along. Isn't that correct?
That's right. That's right. So shortly after this, we'll post it to the Hiring Our Heroes Career Community website. There'll be this recording will be up there, and they'll be able to, scroll through to get those resources.
All right. Thanks for that, and thank you, Carolyn. Our next presenter, to Dave's point earlier, has the most experience with apprenticeships. Anybody on this panel. Frankly, his vision under the Obama administration helped shape and change kind of the future of apprenticeships in the country, and introduced this industry intermediary concept that we're going through now. He is now with Jobs for the Future and running that program. And I will turn it over to Eric Sezes now to talk a little bit about that and their work-based learning site that they have, and he can certainly touch on a lot of different industries that JFF's involved with. Eric?
Sure, Brad, thanks a lot. And Dave, thank you. And Caroline is an excellent overview, so you saved me a lot of effort and work, so thanks. So thanks for joining, everybody, and thanks for your service. I grew up in the DC metro area, and then I did workforce development over in Maryland for a long time, and I worked a lot with Walter Reed Army Medical Center before it transitioned over to Bethesda and the military medical command over there. But so we did a lot of work with TAP and transition when I was at the local level years ago, and also was involved in some base realignment and closure work that happened many years ago. All of those drive workforce issues. Let me just tell you a little bit about JFF, a little bit about me, and then some challenges that I think you're going to face during transition, right? There's a lot of solutions in workforce. You can go to community college, you can go to a 4-year, you can go to a local one-stop workforce center to get job information, research the labor market. There's a lot of solutions out there. Apprenticeship is just one of them, but we think it's a good one. And I think the data would say that best outcomes, best wages, best job retention, as Carolyn mentioned, 94% is nothing to sneeze at. Employers love that. My old boss, when I was at DOL, would call this the other college, except without the debt. And the wages, 70 grand a year is an average, but there's many occupations that we talk to folks all over the country about that are coming in 80, 90, 120 grand a year, depending upon where you are. And that's first year earnings. So subsequent year earnings are a lot more. And a lot of these align really well with your experience that you've had serving in the military, or if you're a veteran, you've been out for a while with other real life experiences. A lot of these align really well. And I think you all know this, employers love hiring people with military experience, and there are apprenticeship programs at places like Amazon and Microsoft and Google and, a lot of different almost every major aerospace employer and every major employer out there always asks us in the field about how can I get access to veterans. So you're a hot commodity, you're a popular group. and you just need to really focus in on what you want to do. JFF, we're a national nonprofit. We're in the workforce and education space. We've been doing it for about 35 years. We ensure economic equity and economic advancement for all. We work with employers to meet their needs, and we work with folks to prepare them for the world of work and the future of work. And the future of work, man, we are right in the middle of a lot of different transitions in the world of work, and I'm going to talk about some of them in a minute, particularly how it relates in this new world of COVID-19. But I'll chat just a little bit about that, but talk about your opportunities coming up. Let me tell you a little bit about our project. Next slide, please. And oh, gee, who's that? Next slide, please. So we have something called the Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. At the bottom is our website. We got tons of articles and resources out there if you want a little bit more about it. We've got some COVID information out there to how that's impacting the world of workforce education, training, and apprenticeship. But lots of really good resources there. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can find me through that link there, or sign up for our newsletters and updates so you can see what's going on around the country once you transition to where you know you're going to go and work and live. So we work with a lot of organizations all over the country in IT, cyber, manufacturing, healthcare, hospitality. And it was really interesting to see your poll results because many of the occupations that you clustered around, transportation and logistics, TDLs, they call it transportation, distribution, logistics, IT and cyber, or even in this sort of whacked out economy we're in, there's still some employer demand in those industries. If you put down hospitality, with a couple of you did, for the short run, you're in a lot of trouble. There's just not a lot happening. They're laying off, you know, the hospitality industry. If you did culinary or food service in the military and you're hoping to do that out in the community, once you transition, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for the short run because, as you know, everything's closed up, layoffs or whatever. So be patient. There are some other occupations out there. Next slide, please. So we do, you know, an intermediary, somebody like JFF or FASTPORT or healthcare apprenticeship program or a lot of other ones out there are experts within a certain industry cluster, and we know the industry, we know employers, and we know how to connect people to job training opportunities. So when, as Dave was saying earlier, you know, they have access to thousands of employers and thousands of connections, and will bend over backwards to provide you information, give you a lead, or to register with them so you can get on there. But, you know, an intermediary is somebody who's the glue, who puts these apprenticeship programs together. So not really important that you know that, only to the extent that there are folks out there in certain industries who can really be helpful. And we know a lot about the industry. JFF in particular is focused a lot on advanced manufacturing right now. So if you're going down to South Carolina, at Charleston, and you're interested, you know, Boeing's got a big plant down there, Bosch, Cummins engine, you know, there's some really advanced manufacturing, high IT focused manufacturing down there. They're all over the country. I just picked Charleston as an example. But anyway, we're doing this big contract program for them, and we're working with a lot of manufacturers across the country. Next slide, please. And really, for the last couple of years, manufacturers can't find the workers with the skills they need. And most of these are really good jobs. You know, that everything from operating CNC machines, welding, IT maintenance on some of these advanced manufacturing equipment, engineering technicians. You got, you know, defense contractors, you know, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and a lot of other companies that are in that space. You know, so we've done a lot of work with all of them. You know, Tesla has always been looking for people, Panasonic. Those were Nevada programs or California programs. So really, it depends where you go across the country, what's happening in the economy, and what you want to do. There's also something called competency-based programs, which reduce the amount of book work and related classroom instruction. So you're being evaluated and trained on a set of skills and competencies you need to learn. If you're doing something that was aligned with your military experience, a lot of those things will not be new to you, and you can sail through an apprenticeship program. But there are, you know, good wages, good wages at the end of your apprenticeship program. So you may start an apprenticeship program that typically pays 26 bucks an hour, but maybe they're going to start you at 20 bucks an hour because you don't really know much about that industry, right? But as you're there for your first year and you're learning skills, you're getting on the job learning, you're getting classroom or tested out on certain machinery or activity, your wages will increase. And then by the time you complete the program, you'll then be at that $26 an hour or higher, or sometimes we call it a journeyman's level of activity. But they take you in, you know, for the employer, it's a win for them too, right? They get to grow their own workers, they get to train you the way they want you. And so it's good for employers. And obviously we wouldn't have done this when I was with the administration if it wasn't based in evidence. So of all the range of workforce programs out there, there is nothing that's more effective from an evidence base, from the data, as apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship. Now, I do want to mention a word about something called registered apprenticeship. If you want to take it, if you're in a quote registered apprenticeship, and those are programs that an employer or an intermediary like us register with either a state apprenticeship agency or the federal government, that's the gateway into getting GI Bill resources that's approved. Has to be a bona fide registered apprenticeship program, and then the housing allowance or some of the other benefits or resources come your way. So as you're looking at this and researching this, you want to make sure you're in a registered program to take advantage of that. So, you know, we work with employers all over. We got a sense that from most employers, I think all of us here can tell you that employers just can't, you know, before this COVID thing, they would say, look, we just can't find the workers with the skills that we want. We can't find people who show up every day. We can't find people who can work at teams, who can solve problems, and show up every day. And I think that's where veterans, transitioning military spouses are typically much more tuned in, and many times more tuned into those things. So you're a very attractive group of folks for employers. Next slide, please, if there is one. Yeah, so there you go. That's a beautiful slide. But, you know, we've placed 3,000 employers in manufacturing, 3,000 workers in manufacturing. And we're going to continue to do that. We're doing apprenticeships with youth and high school students. The average age of an apprenticeship in the US is about 28 or 29 years old. In some of the programs in Europe, and if you're coming through Germany or any of the European countries, sometimes you'll know their average age of apprentices is 17. They have a very different model here. But for adult workers transitioning back into the workforce, apprenticeship is something that you really ought to check out. Now, how do you find them in your area? Carolyn gave you a couple of really good resources for that apprenticeship finder. There's also something I put up in the chat, or I think Carolyn had that on there too, which is, you know, there's 2,500 workforce centers across the country. Those are sort of retail or walk-in centers where you can get information. Almost every one-stop center across the country in your community has a veterans employment representative there. Who will see you and talk to you specifically to make sure you're not standing in line behind 100 other people, and will provide you direct services for military spouses, for transitioning military, for recently separated veterans, or really any veterans. So there are resources out there for workforce. You can, before you transition out, I saw in the data earlier that some of you are already out and looking, some of you are going to be transitioning over the next 3 months to 12 months. It's an unusual world out there because of the COVID-19 situation, and we just have to be realistic about this. Many occupations are not hiring, many are laying off. We just got the unemployment numbers this morning. So if you're not getting transitioned out for another 3 to 12 months, I think that's probably a good thing because it'll give some time for things to slow down. I already talked about the restaurant and hospitality business, a little bit challenged now. Manufacturing's doing hiring, IT's doing hiring, cyber is. So there's a lot of other good opportunities. You may have to find something, you know, temporary until things pick up. Apprenticeship programs are sometimes the first things to go in an economic downturn, but I think we're all seeing and hoping that it'll be short term and things will start to pick up again this summer. So there should be more opportunities out there. All of this work is sort of supply and demand, and I would encourage you to look at it that way, right? To see where the demands are in the community you're going to be transitioning to, right? Are you going to be going back to your home area, or are you just going to follow a good job somewhere? So Northern Virginia, for example, has got tons of great IT jobs and cyber positions. You know, there are a lot of federal contractors are out there. So you might say, hey, I'm going to go to the DC area to check that out. Well, you can get online, find out who's hiring, what the jobs, what the skills are out there. How does it relate to your experience? Have you been in healthcare? Have you been in food service? Have you been in IT? So a lot of those things you can find. So I would encourage you to spend some time, if you're already out there, to look at these state workforce websites so you can research what industries are hiring, what's hot, what's not hot. A lot of that information is readily available. And if you've got 3 to 6 months to look, go ahead and look, see where the jobs are popping up, see what industries are hiring, and see where you can fit in. So a lot of it is sort of planning and thinking as you transition out. I used to do a lot of tap over at Walter Reed and Bethesda, and you know, folks really didn't have any idea what they were going to look at, and they didn't know what to do when they got home. Or where to look when they got home. There are over 2,500 of these one-stop employment centers. There are now these websites that can really give you some really granular and fine information to start looking. I think there are great jobs and great opportunities, maybe a little challenging the next, 90 to 120 days, but there is great opportunity. These employers, they may be putting things on hold, but they're all waiting for the pent-up demand and to rehire. So lots of opportunities out there in apprenticeship. There's other workforce programs, like I said, but apprenticeship's probably going to get you the best wages, the best education and training, and the best results once you complete them. I should also say apprenticeships, have done well in this country years in building trades, right? You probably know plumbers, electricians, crane operators, airplane mechanics. But now this has really expanded into IT, cyber, healthcare, and a lot of other industries. So look for apprenticeship opportunities. It has an old name. It's been around hundreds of years, but it's an old new solution to a lot of workforce challenges and getting jobs out there. So with that, I'll wrap it down. You guys can probably tell I can talk about this all day long, and I could, but there are plenty of opportunities if you do your homework out there. Brad, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Thanks for that overview, Eric. Again, a wealth of information. I encourage everybody to take advantage of the knowledge of the panelists that we have here today. I do see, Adam, that we've got some questions that have come in. So with the few minutes we have left on the program today, I think we should get to some of those. I think the first couple I see here go back to Carolyn's presentation. And I know that we can type some of the answers into the chat. Some of those resources have already been done, but we had Lance ask who the point of contact was at Travis Air Force Base for apprentice placement. So I'll let Carolyn answer that. And Adam, I do want to ask you real quick. I know Travis is a base where Hiring Our Heroes normally has an in-person transition summit. I was actually out there last summer with FASTPORT. We exhibited at that one. And I think that's on the schedule for this year, assuming that we get to start doing the in-person events again. But one of the bases that was identified. So Carolyn, if you could answer that question for Lance. And I think there's a couple of other ones on here related to you as well.
Sure. So the lead apprenticeship placement counselor at Travis, his name is Jory Avery. And if you email vets apprenticeship@dol.gov, I can connect you directly to them.
All right, and Carolyn, there's another question here from Marola. Wanted to know, says the intent for the research and setup to happen during the first 180 days in military with an intern start date after actual separation. Can you touch on that?
So the intent actually is to connect any transitioning service member to an apprenticeship program post-separation, right? So connect them, get that job offer prior to separation, and then they start right after they separate. So the SkillBridge program is that 180-day kind of pre-apprenticeship program where they're going to be transitioning into an apprenticeship, could be a registered apprenticeship program. So this apprenticeship pilot not only is focused on registered apprenticeship programs, but also other apprenticeship programs that are not necessarily registered with the Department of Labor or a state apprenticeship agency. So we want to make sure that that start date is actually, at separation, after separation into that apprenticeship program.
Dave, here's one that I've heard you talk about several times in presentations that FASTPORT has done. Someone has asked about the difference between registered apprenticeships and industry recognized apprenticeships, which is something that's been recognized, and wanting to know if the GI Bill benefits apply to both.
Well, principally, the difference between registered apprenticeship and IRAPs, keep in mind that the version of IRAP that has just come out very recently is very, very new. It's not even in place yet. They have what's called SREs, which will be the people essentially serving as an intermediary type role, for lack of better words, and going into too much detail, haven't even been appointed. They haven't even submitted yet. So at this point, it's not even a viable option. It will be. And in many ways it overlaps. If you look at the comparison contrast, there is a cross-sectionality between both. Essentially, an IRAP means there are some provisions that allow for a less time in training, but if you have a competency-based registered apprenticeship program, then it kind of is a push. It's the same thing. I really don't want to identify what an IRAP is until it actually gets in place and starts functioning. And it's hard to do so because it's all conjecture until that point. I think Eric would agree with that, and I'm sure everybody on the panel would agree with that. The other thing is that, to your question about does the same GI Bill benefits apply to both? No, it does not at this time. Right. It only applies to registered apprenticeship programs, and unless there's congressional action that allows for that change, it will not. So IRAPs, any work-based learning model, I'm in favor of. If it helps transition and strengthen our country and help families, I'm in favor of whatever it is. But if I'm a veteran and I'm transitioning and I have GI Bill benefits that I want to utilize in that transition for my education, or as Eric said, the second college without the student debt, then I'm going to go register apprenticeship at this time until there's a change there. And I want to add something else that both Carolyn and Eric referred to, and this is not to the question, but it should be relative to everybody that's participating in this and listening. The number of 94% retention at the end of the apprenticeship. Additionally, 9 months later, up to a year later, 91% of those same apprentices are still with the same employer. Why is that important to you? While Eric referred to that's important to employers, and it certainly is, because that means more bang for their buck and they're getting higher quality candidates. But what's important to you as a transition military, that means that the experience that other people are having at that employer in their apprenticeship program is extremely positive. This is going back when there were more jobs open than there were job seekers, and if somebody wasn't having a positive experience, they'd jump ship. They're not jumping ship. So you keep that in mind. I wanted to stress that before I got off. Okay. All right, Brad.
Eric, anything you want to add to the registered apprenticeship versus IRAP question?
Oh, no, I'll leave that for somebody from DOL to answer. But look, registered apprenticeship is proven in this country for the last 82 years. IRAPs, we'll see how that goes. It's a policy change of this administration, so we'll see. But to Dave's point about if I'm going to do apprenticeships and I'm transitioning military or veteran, I'm going to do registered so I can take advantage of some of those GI Bills. It's also a matter of, what is considered the gold standard. Registered apprenticeships are proven, and many employers say they don't want to do anything but the proven gold standard. IRAPs, it remains to be seen how they go. But at this point, for GI Bill purposes, I'm going with registered, and I highly recommend it.
All right, thanks for that. A couple of the questions have come in. Carolyn, this goes back to you. Are TSMs at the pilot sites the only ones that can utilize program during the pilot period?
So the TSMs at those 8 installations are the only ones that can work with those apprenticeship placement counselors that we have put on those bases. So any TSM can access apprenticeship.gov, the apprenticeship finder, to find open apprenticeship opportunities. And I know that FASTPORT also has a website where they can go on and they can find apprenticeship opportunities as well. So with regards to the pilot, engaging with those apprenticeship placement counselors are specific for those installations. But again, apprenticeship is open to everyone and anyone out there. We encourage you go to apprenticeship.gov, go to the FASTPORT website to see what other opportunities that you can get connected to through an apprenticeship program.
Thank you, Carolyn. And yeah, the FASTPORT site is nationalapprenticeship.org. I know Dave had that on the slide, but we can certainly put that up in the chat as well. A couple other questions here. A lot of this information has been geared to veterans and active duty. This is coming from Anthony Matson. Wants to know, are there options available for active duty spouses, or are there separate options? Who wants to take that one?
So apprenticeship, again, can be for anybody. Apprenticeship can be for someone who's just getting out of high school, it can be for a veteran, it can be for a military spouse, it can be for a mom who's returning back to work after taking 10 years off from her from raising her kids. It can be from someone who's actually currently employed, and maybe they're in the HR position and they want to transfer over to IT. It's a structured training plan so that it takes someone through those steps and gets them fully competent in that occupation. So really it's open for anybody, people of all ages, all different backgrounds.
Yeah, and I'll add a couple of comments to that too. Being involved with Hiring Our Heroes for the last few years, we've really seen an emphasis in the last couple of years on a lot more structured programs for military spouses. I know they had an event at the U.S. Chamber last summer where they had a lot of the leading military-friendly and veteran-ready employers make pledges to also hire military spouses. Part of that, or some of those companies also came out with apprenticeships. I can tell you there are a few of them that right now, to Eric's point earlier, maybe are on hold. But certainly, if this is an end to the COVID in the next couple of months, I think we'll see the continuation of a lot of those. But I would encourage you to go to the Hiring Our Heroes side and check out who some of those employers are in their military spouse professional network.
Yeah, Brad, I think the days of going to community college or college and just doing all of your instruction and then waiting 2 years or 4 years to get a degree and go out in the workforce, I think those days are rapidly coming to a close in this country. That linear progression hasn't really worked. And, it doesn't work for students and workers as well. And it doesn't really work for employers. I don't know how many employers have said to me, God, this person has a bachelor's degree in IT and they don't know what they're doing on a computer, or they're working in a lab with a bachelor's degree and they don't know how to work with this equipment. So that learn and earn, that working and getting the applied learning at the same time, integrating that with education is just growing. It's a little bit every month, a little bit every year as a really bona fide way to get into the workforce. So, the linear models are changing. Employers are looking at other ways to do it. I might also add just something about diversity. Diversity and equity in apprenticeship, typically in the history, it was always building trades and manufacturing, male-dominated positions. But, you look at the data, it's totally male-dominated. And so what the Department of Labor has really been focused on the last 4 years and is today is diversity and equity in apprenticeship. And a lot of companies, their goals are diversity, right? Because they realize they haven't been reflecting the communities they serve and giving people the opportunities they should. So there's low numbers of women in apprenticeships, and that's starting to change a little bit, but we need to, I think, do more purposeful and intentional outreach to women, to people of color, to immigrants that are authorized to work in the U.S., to veterans, to other groups that have been underrepresented. So a lot of companies are looking to diversify their workforce with a lot of different folks, and people with disabilities and service-connected disabilities. So lots of opportunity, and diversity is a big play, and apprenticeship can help with that.
Thanks for that, Eric. I know Adam just gave me the cue. We've only got a few minutes left here, but certainly we want to try to get all of our questions answered. One thing I want to mention before I forget, based off the polling results, we did see a lot of activity around IT and cyber. Eric mentioned a couple of specific programs that JFF's involved in. There is a program that's under development that FASTPORT is doing some work on. I would encourage everybody to look at the Purdue Cyber Apprenticeship Program. they're taking the candidates for their first cohort, and we'd be glad to get you connected with some of the employers who are involved with that, where you'd be able to pursue certifications and degrees and hopefully be able to have a career path in one of the hottest occupations that's out there. With that, let's get one final question in. I'll kick it out to whoever wants to answer it. What happens if you don't have GI Bill benefits? In other words, they're exhausted. Can you still get paid by the company?
I'll take this one. The GI Bill benefits is separate from the pay from the company. It's over and above that. You're getting paid from the company regardless. So the two have nothing to do with each other. And the GI Bill benefit, MHA, is paid directly to you. The employer's involvement is nothing more than each and every month they will certify your hours that you work, so the VA will cut the check and send it to you electronically. And on the PCAP side, Brad, to your point, that the nationalapprenticeship.org site, if you put your information there, that will end up going to the PCAP employers as well.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Adam, we'll kick it over to you to wrap us up.
I will. I'll take over. This is excellent. I learned a lot myself, and I know all the participants out there learned a great deal as well. I mean, you guys are an esteemed panel with a lot of experience and knowledge, and we greatly appreciate you spending your morning with us to share all that. I know we could have probably gone on for another hour, but the time is short right now. Again, I thank you all very much. For all of you listening, you can go to hiringourheroes.org, career communities, and you can find the recording of this, which we'll have in the next couple of days. And then eventually, I think we might have the ability to share the slides with you as well. Also, for you that are still interested in learning a little bit more about some things on Industry Thursday at 1 p.m. today, we have a brief by the Perfect Technicians Academy when we're going to talk specifically about careers in HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. And so you can join us there at this same website here. Again, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Be safe out there and have a good day.